eNCA out there is very hot across many parts of South Africa today. Now, consumer inflation dipped slightly in November and December last year, but economists have warned that a repo rate hike is on the cards this week. The Reserve Bank is set to announce its decision tomorrow. Galetti corporate real estate CEO John Jack says the increase will have a major impact on commercial real estate and landlords in particular. He joins us now via Zoom to talk about this a little further. John, good afternoon. Welcome to Today on eNCA. Thank you very much for your time. So what kind of impact should the private commercial sector, property sector expect from another increase, which economists are speculating could be 25 basis points or 50 basis points?
You know, it's an interesting one because it's almost a sum of all of the increases that we've had. You know, as fast as we price the commercial property, the interest rates keep changing the yield or the return that you can expect on a property. So one day we could expect a property to trade at 9%, then it's 9.5%, then it's 9.9%. So as much as all the rentals have come off in the last 2 years, given the vacancies, et cetera, now the interest rates going up, it's pushing the yields up, it's further devaluing property. So it's just a really hard market to price commercial property in the market. And you're seeing a lot of interesting opportunities come to market. So there's a major impact really in that sort of trade of commercial property and pricing the commercial property accurately.
Yeah, and then the load shedding doesn't help, eh? It exacerbates the situation for if you're having such a property.
You know, in the end of the day, there's what we call the total spend, the total spend of a tenant. So a tenant has to spend money on its rental. Then there might be some operating costs, the cleaning of the office, your receptionist, your electricity, your water, et cetera, et cetera. And diesel prices are really expensive. You kind of get your electricity bill and then maybe sort of 6 weeks later, you get your diesel bill on top of that. And what's happening is the electricity prices aren't really going down, your monthly spend, but your diesel price now comes on top of that. And so, it's just a really, really expensive and tricky market for tenants to operate in. Same being for landlords. If you're a landlord holding a property and your bond repayments, et cetera, are just pushing and pushing and pushing, it doesn't really help.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, there's been speculation for quite some time, and speaking to economists and in the last few weeks or so, we're not expecting a local recession, but people are concerned whether it could happen because globally there are fears, depending what happens elsewhere in markets like America and China, that we might be headed for a global recession. If that's the case, how could our local commercial property sector be affected?
It's interesting because, when you look at the recession on a sort of a broader scale, on a macro scale, a lot of the businesses have been shoring up cash. So they've been holding on to cash. They've been cleaning up their balance sheets. They've been improving their businesses overall. So they're all sitting on a lot of cash. And so that's why they say it's a shallower recession, because the businesses can actually deal with it. It's really the consumer that's under pressure. You can imagine your bond repayments have gone up, and the cost of food's gone up, and the cost of petrol's gone up, and now you've got to have a generator at home. And so it's the consumer that's under pressure that's going to drive this recession. And really what that means for commercial property is that ultimately those businesses start getting less revenue, and ultimately they start saying to themselves, should we expand? In a growth market where the GDP is growing, you might have a situation where the tenants are saying, we should take a bigger office, or we should take a bigger warehouse. And now they're saying, we're just going to hang on, and we're just going to slow down. And what that does is you get a stagnant vacancy in the market. So the vacancy doesn't really get taken up in the market, and that has a direct impact on landlords.
Yeah, just talking about the commercial property sector, I'm fascinated to find out, the differences region to region. For example, I've seen a report where you are stating the fact that companies are moving their head offices, for example, to the Western Cape from elsewhere in the country in order to benefit from better public service delivery.
Yeah, absolutely a trend. We're seeing a lot of it. In fact, the Cape Town market, the office market, there's very little vacancy in it. Where there was vacancy has been converted into residential and done fantastically well. And what's left has then been taken up by tenants. You've got very little vacancy in the commercial market. Whereas if you look at Sandton, for example, you've got huge vacancy, and you've obviously got big infrastructure problems in the roads and pedestrian, et cetera, et cetera. Water becomes an issue. And now, we hear announced that you can start wheeling your power, your solar power back into the system, so you can get paid 78 cents per kilowatt. And then an additional 25 cents from the municipality. So suddenly you're getting a rand back per kilowatt, and you've got, that's what's happening in Cape Town. What's happening with the rest of the country? Why is it not happening in Johannesburg? There's a huge, we've got so much sun up there, as you know. Well, not in December, but you've got a huge ability to produce solar there, yet we can't wheel back into the grid. And it's just another example how Cape Town's just streaking ahead with everything. Good strategy down here.
Is there any good node in Johannesburg for commercial property currently?
I love Rosebank. We've got our offices in Rosebank, and I love Rosebank. It's got a great pedestrian feel to it.
You are biased. You are biased. You are biased because you have an office in Rosebank.
Yeah, we had Anglo move in there. So Anglo's moved their head office there, and of course their shared services and gold and blah, blah, blah. So that took up a massive amount of vacancy. You put a lot of people in, and all of a sudden you've got, a better working node,
Yeah. What about KZN? They suffered quite a bit last year in the April floods. How are they doing when it comes to commercial property, John?
Yeah, KZN's really struggling at the moment. They've got real service. When you say Joburg doesn't have service delivery, it just means it's got poor service delivery. When you say there's service infrastructure and failure, that's what's happening in KZN. So you can imagine you've got situations where roads are breaking down, sewer plants are breaking down. You just like anything that you can imagine is happening in KZN. So they're having a really tough time.
Okay. Finally, as we conclude, John, with tomorrow coming, with the Reserve Bank set to announce a new higher repo rate, as everybody is predicting, because we're not over yet their rate hiking cycle. Even the governor of the Reserve Bank, Lesisa Kganyago, has said as much recently. What would your advice be to a commercial property owners in terms of the next cycle of a rate increase? What's the main thing they should bear in mind?
Yeah, look, a lot of the guys are very well educated, so there's not a lot they haven't done already. But for the smaller guys, I think what you need to be doing is looking at your portfolio and seeing how you can actually restructure your debt. The bigger guys, they've done this already. They're in control. They know what's happening. But the smaller guys have often taken out debt per property that they've acquired over time. What you can actually look is bundling that all together in a portfolio and seeing if you can improve your terms. But that's really the best way to look. In terms of fixing your rates, it's a bit too late in the cycle now to do any fixing. I wouldn't suggest that. We starting to near the end of the hiking cycle, one hopes at least. That's the guidance we've been given. So fixing your rates now is just going to cost you money, but really it's about trying to improve the rate that you currently have. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time and explanations. That's the CEO of Galetti Corporate Real Estate, John Jack, ahead, of course, of tomorrow's announcement by the Reserve Bank of a new rate hike. Expectations are that it could go up, the rates could go up by anything between 25 basis points or 50 basis points.